Welcome to the Road to 100 Million in Real Estate podcast, where you'll benefit from the opportunity to learn to become a skillful real estate investor. You'll get guidance from top industry producers, operators, and investors who are eager to help you learn from their proven strategies of success. Now to your host, Dorrance Constant.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dorrance Constant. It's great to have you all here with us today. Today, I've got a special guest. I've got Royce King today. How are you doing, Royce?
I'm doing great, Dorrance. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on, Royce. And folks, I want to give you a little bit of a background. Royce King has worked with more than 250 entrepreneurs and owned and managed 35 properties, and has created a marketing copy for professionals who want to become influencers. She has published a highly sought after marketing book called Scale Up Your Profits, found on Amazon.com. Her passion for marketing and real estate has collided, and she's worked with real estate professionals around the US and the UK to create effective marketing content. Again, welcome to the show, Royce.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, Royce, we typically start the show on the same energy, which I'd love to hear. What impact real estate has had on your life?
Oh my gosh. You said real estate and marketing collided, and boy, it sure has in my world. In 2001, I started investing in rental properties and was doing quite well, making high six figures in a year. And then 2008 and 9 happened, and we did not have coaches or understand how to navigate an economic downturn at all. And so my ex-husband and I crashed and burned, had to file bankruptcy, had to move from our dream home on 40 acres with all kinds of toys back into our original home, which we had turned into a rental, and just start over. And it was detrimental to our family. Our kids watched that, and our kids had a downshift in lifestyle and everything. And then in 2014, I got divorced and had to start over again. And by 2016, I knew I loved real estate. I knew it was the path to wealth. And I started investing in real estate again. And because of my knowledge, I've worked with realtors around the country and capital raisers and investors, all kinds of people in the real estate industry, to write copy, because I truly understand it, from first-time home buyer all the way up to DSTs and 1031 exchanges. And I've done most of those things myself. And so marketing and real estate have collided. And, you run a syndicate with $100 million of assets under management or something similar to that. And I have helped capital raisers differentiate themselves, because you're all vying for investors. And we, as smaller investors, are vying for a different way to invest in real estate versus $150, $200 a month in toilets, tenants, and trash and problems, or fix and flips, with the Titans lending and the increased rates. And so we have to do something as investors to recession-proof ourselves. And syndicates are a way to do that. But there are so many syndicates. How do we choose? And so really, you're speaking to a group of investors that have a problem. How are you hooking them into that problem with your messaging?
Absolutely. And your story is incredible, Royce, in that you invested in a market that was at its peak at a certain point. You went through what many real estate investors went through, which is that downturn. But it sounds like you jumped back into the game. So you managed to jump back into the game and keep investing, and somehow you had the fortitude to connect your passion for marketing as well as real estate, which is huge. So that is awesome story to hear.
Yeah, thank you. It has been fun. And Like I said, every week I have the chance to work with real estate professionals. I just wrote an MLS listing for a luxury realtor with a $55 million listing. That's my biggest one yet, all the way to nurture emails for syndicates month after month, where they stay top of mind with their investors and really build trust and share information that their investors want. And so I love writing the marketing copy and the nurture copy, and it just fuels my passion for real estate even more.
That's awesome. Now, you started touching on a point where you started mentioning in the beginning, it's important for, let's say, the larger syndicates funds, such as that I represent, needs to have some kind of a hook. So I'd love for you to start even talking about some of the fundamental steps that are needed when trying to connect with investors who, let's say, would like to connect with a fund and not deal with some of the toilet issues you were mentioning.
All right. Yeah. Syndicates have their own little twist on what they're investing in and the length of the investment before they return to the investors. And so really you're starting with what I call your one-liner or your introductory line when someone says, "What is it you do?" And that's to state the problem that you solve and the solution that you offer and the results that you've had, and to just refine that into a succinct 1 or 2 sentences. And I'll give you an example of how you set yourself apart. Perhaps there's an investor that wants to have a quick return of 2 years. Well, if you're managing a fund that's going to give the investor their capital back in 5 to 7, it's the wrong fund. Or perhaps you are buying raw land and you're going to develop a community, but if someone is afraid of raw land, that may be the wrong investment, right? Perhaps they understand rented apartment complexes a little bit better. And so you have different investors for different syndicates that focus on mobile home parks or storage units or multifamily apartment complexes or raw land. And each one of those gives a different value to your investors. And you have to know what your investors are looking for so that you're attracting the right ones, rather than spinning your wheels with someone who is the wrong investor for you and both of you become unhappy.
Absolutely. So we want to be succinct about the message, right? You're mentioning with that one-liner, so that I imagine that we can attract, again, that investor that's looking for us, essentially, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you do that really by painting the picture of before and after. You help them envision what they're getting into. And the weight loss industry does this very well, right? You have the 300-pound person that loses 150 pounds and they're toned and fit and everything, right? But do we in the real estate world do that, right? Can you paint the picture of, we'll do a 2x return in 2 years, and you're not going to do that with fix and flips because you're going to have all the headaches and manage all the contractors yourself and blah, blah, blah. Or, you're 7 years from retirement and this is a 5 to 7 year hold. So really when we give you your capital back, you're going to be very happy and set for retirement. So you need to get people to envision that before and after picture of whatever it is you're trying to get them to invest in. And by painting that picture, you can determine, are they the right investor for me?
Absolutely. That's fantastic advice. And if we dig a bit deeper, Royce, we would first want to, I imagine, understand who is our ideal client. How do we know our ideal client? What are some exercises that you'd recommend that folks who are syndicating, capital raiser, et cetera, do to hone in on their ideal client?
Well, I just have one of my retainer clients pivot. He started with a certain group of investors that were, low end, 25 to 50,000, and then pivoted to very wealthy, high affluent individuals who had short careers, professional ball players or movie stars and, people that made their money in a very short time frame, but made a lot of it. And he was able to pivot and speak to his audience through a change of messaging. And the process that we went through together was really I have an intake form. It's 3 pages long, and we dive into your psychographics, your sociographics, and other things, because the more you understand about your customer, the more you can hone in on what's really important to them. And we tend to think of just demographics, but that's not true. Psychographics can weigh much more heavily on your investor's profile. And so really speaking to a marketing strategist that isn't going to ad hoc your marketing, but they're going to put together a strategy and ask the right questions is important. Just like building a house, you start with the foundation, you don't put the roof on first. And too many people come to me saying, can you do my marketing and write my weekly emails for me? Okay, what's your marketing strategy? Do you have a content calendar? I have no idea what that is. Okay, well, let's start with building a foundation first so that this house won't fall apart. We're going to put together a strategy so that your marketing makes sense and you are getting a return on your investment, because email marketing is so important. And that's what my retainer clients look to me for, is to write their weekly or biweekly emails. And studies show it has anywhere from a 95% to a 4,000% ROI. Where are you going to get? Yeah, where are you going to get even 1,000% ROI, right? In real estate, you're not promising your investors that, but your email list is honestly your gold. And if you are ad hocing your emails without a strategy, you're going to lose out on finding that gold. And you may find a little gold dust, but you're not going to ever hit the mother lode. And I was just listening to a speaker, Amy Porterfield, and if any of you know her, she's made millions on course creation, and some of the syndicate capital raisers are building courses and such, but she says, don't build your business on rented land, meaning depending on social media, rather build it with your email list. And so if I could say one thing that's the most important thing to you, it would be to get a marketing strategist that understands real estate, that can put your email on autopilot and really speak to your audience week after week, and get those open rates up, build trust, build credibility, speak to their pain points, speak to the success you've had, and grow your investor list through your email list.
Wow, that is fantastic advice. I think it's definitely really important that we are understanding who our client is, who are the best people we're to serve, and who can connect with us. Then understanding some of their needs, their wants, their desires, their fears, etc. So we understood how to best help them. And then it sounds like we have to then be communicating with them consistently and in a language they understand, and also providing value. Is that fair?
That's fair. And I'll add to that. I just said don't build your business on rented land, but all of your platforms online need to sync. They need to really gel. And so you probably will have a Facebook page or a LinkedIn profile or something that still needs to speak to what you do and who your audience is, because they're probably going to check you out on social media. And so I'm not saying don't have those. I'm saying don't build your business on those. The other thing I would say is your timing as a syndication is beautiful right now, because my son's in mortgages, and he and I were talking the other day, and I've been wanting to do a fix and flip this year and have had health challenges. And So I was talking to him about rates for fix and flips. And he says, Mom, I don't have any lenders right now that will fund, unless you have an experience score of 5. Well, so a lot of your smaller investors that haven't done fix and flips or done short-term or long-term rentals have nowhere to go because of the lender regulations right now. And so they're going to be looking at syndicates as a way to invest their money in the real estate industry, and they'll have nowhere else to go. So you guys are really sitting on gold in this forecasted recession, shall we say.
Sure.
Right? And you can recession proof your business by building that investor list and getting your emails consistently produced and with the right message.
Absolutely. I'd love for you to dive deeper. You mentioned something recession proofed your list. Is that correct? Did I catch that right?
Yes.
What does that mean, and how do we do that? I'm sure our listeners heard that piqued their interest. Would you dive deeper into that?
Yeah. You are building relationships with your investors, and think of this like you think of being married, right? If you don't communicate with your spouse on a regular basis, it erodes your relationship, and you don't have the relationship and the intimacy that you need to weather the storm. Well, the same holds true for your relationship with your investors. And so by communicating with them on a regular basis, you are building trust, right? Again, without regular communication, trust erodes because they wonder where you're at and what you're hiding from them. You stay top of mind because, again, everybody and their mother is forming a syndication right now. And I have 5 opportunities a week to invest in a syndication. So what's going to be the determining factor on which one I choose? You have to stay top of mind, and the communication you have with your investors is so important. So how can you recession proof your business if you are a capital raiser, or if you are that investor who runs successful businesses and is looking for a place to invest your profits? You really have to stay top of mind and consistently communicate. It builds trust. And as we know, the old axiom is know, like, and trust. They have to know you, they have to get to like you, and then they have to trust you. And so again, I liken it to a good, solid marriage that has built that through proper courtship and communication.
Right. Now, something like that sounds basic, but I'm sure it's not happening. To communicate consistently with, for instance, like you mentioned, like a marriage, right? Our folks are building relationships with us that we hope that are to last for a long time in the interchange of value. So in that communication, what would you describe are some of the points that are most important to communicate when we're keeping in contact with our investor base, our investors, et cetera? What do you believe they want to hear consistently?
Well, I just had one syndication double their list in 90 days because he did regular communication. And what those investors really want to hear are the hot news topics of the day. How is this affecting things? Like, you invest in apartments. Well, if you were on an adjustable rate mortgage and the rates have gone up 6 times this year, right? There's less cash flow for the investors. So communicate that why, that your mortgage went from, 10,000 to 15,000, or, 50,000 to 65,000. And so it's going to delay the capital distributions, right? Communicate those things so that it's not a surprise and you're keeping them abreast of things. Communicate how eviction laws are different based on where you're at and where the property is at. That affects your vacancy rate and your time to evict. So educate them, and they don't need to be in the know so much that you're putting the stress on them, because obviously they want passive income.
Right.
But they need to know how the market and the changes in mortgage rates and our economy are affecting real estate as a whole. And they also need to be aware of why you chose your favorite investment, which in your case is multifamily apartment buildings. But if you were to pivot and go with storage units, why? Why is that a better business model at this time? And why are you pivoting? So anyway, the more they know, the more they feel like you're communicating with them openly, and there's transparency and there's education and there's information. And I would say those are the three things to communicate.
That makes a ton of sense. It's essentially having that transparency there where that investor is being educated, but also understands what's happening with the projects they're investing in, and then understanding the why of all these movements and the thought process. That's huge. Now, are there any tools or resources that you would recommend folks utilize when they're connecting with investors?
When they're connecting with investors, past performance is important, right? If you have any of your past performances that you can share, future markets that you're looking at and why. I know for me, the market is important because there are tenant-friendly states and landlord-friendly states. And so I want to know that you are in a market that is landlord-friendly and that you're in a growing market. And I also think that having regular blogs on your website is important because you can drive them to that education. So again, it builds know, like, and trust, and it educates and informs. And that's one of my retainer products is blogs and emails. And we repurpose that content for social media posts and interviews and other things. So it's valuable to repurpose that content. And one way you can repurpose it is by sharing it with potential investors.
Oh, well, we thank you for those tips. Now we're winding down our show, but I know we have folks who are going to want to connect with you. Would you please, tell us the ways that our folks can connect with you?
Absolutely. Go to my website, yourstartup.coach. No, it's not .com. It's yourstartup.coach. And you can actually download a free marketing assessment on my website. It will allow you to assess 31 different points of your current marketing strategy and see where you need to fill in the gaps and maybe create a strategy so that you can implement it, and where you are doing very, very well so that you get a much greater ROI for your marketing dollar, because obviously, right, we're all investors and you want an ROI. So if there's any gaps that are robbing money from your bank account, you'll want to know. So download the free assessment, take 15 minutes to take it, and connect with me on my website, yourstartup.coach.
Well, yeah, folks, make sure you go to that website and connect with Royce King. She's dropped a ton of gems on the podcast today. So we thank you so much for your time, Royce. Is there anything else that our folks should know about you? Anything that you're doing in the future that they should also stay connected with you about?
Oh, Dorrance, if they get on my Marketing Minutes newsletter, they can find out all the upcoming events. I do speak at summits and on podcasts and occasionally release books, which I'm about to do for another one. So go on and register for Marketing Minutes. And thank you so much for having me, Dorrance.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast. We appreciate you, and you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
We trust that you enjoyed today's show. Visit archcapital.ventures to learn more about how you can leverage real estate investing to improve your life through passive income, financial freedom, and generational wealth.